On the day of my wedding, my newly widowed elder sister suddenly had a miscarriage, her life hanging by a thread. My husband-to-be, just as we were about to perform the ceremony, resolutely abandoned me and stood guard outside my elder sister's boudoir for a whole day and 2 nights. On the 3rd day, he finally came back, but he rushed straight into the nuptial chamber and grabbed my neck. "Shu Mingwan, do you even have a heart? Mingyu is at death's door, and you still have the face to calmly be your princess consort." I am the Grand Tutor's youngest granddaughter. Because my elder sister was frail, and my mother had no time for me, I was raised by my grandmother's side since childhood. My grandmother was a famous, talented woman in her youth, so I was raised to be well-read and sensible. Logically speaking, I should have been the most favored noble lady in the capital, but as fate would have it, my grandparents passed away one after another when I was 14, and ever since then, I've been like an outsider in this family. My elder sister knew how to act cute to vie for favor, and she was frail and often ill. She would cough up blood at the slightest displeasure, so all the family's affection was given to her. I often felt like an outsider watching their happy family, while I would often be alone at night, spacing out in my grandparents' room. The year I turned 16, my 18-year-old elder sister finally got married. Mother fell gravely ill from missing my elder sister, so I nursed her while also managing the household affairs for her neatly and efficiently. I thought that with my elder sister away from home, my mother would finally see me. But the first thing she said after recovering from her serious illness was, "Just how hard-hearted are you? Your elder sister married into an outer city, and you're not even a little bit sad." I lowered my gaze to the medicinal soup in the bowl, not responding. But why should I be sad because she is marrying far away? I'm overjoyed, if anything. Seeing my lukewarm attitude, my mother got annoyed and waved me away to leave. At night, I heard her discussing my marriage with my father. Father said I should stay for another year to keep her company, but mother refused, saying it would be more peaceful for her if I weren't around. My grandmother and the current Empress Dowager have been close since childhood, so I was betrothed from a young age to the Empress Dowager's favorite grandson, the current 9th Prince, Shen Shao. Shen Shao is the legitimate son of the Empress. His elder full brother is the Crown Prince, so he has been a noble and idle prince since he was young. Grandmother probably arranged this marriage because she wanted me to have a worry-free life. Shen Shao has an indifferent personality, but he treated me with a rare gentleness. I once thought that was just his personality, and that he was already treating me quite well. But it wasn't until the day before our wedding, when I saw him standing in a daze outside my elder sister's courtyard, that I realized he wasn't indifferent, but that I had never entered his heart. My elder sister was also unfortunate. Her husband fell ill and passed away less than half a year after they were married. Mom and Dad immediately went to the outer city to bring her back. At that time, she was already 1 month pregnant. After my elder sister came home, all of my parents' attention shifted back to her. They wouldn't even spare half a bit of energy for me. Even though my wedding was less than half a month away, I handled everything myself, including personally decorating the wedding chamber in the prince's manor. Sometimes I'm glad that Grandma taught me these things. Otherwise, how could I have gone on living alone? I said. My eldest sister was unfortunate, right? Otherwise, she wouldn't have lost her husband, and then her child. But when I saw that my parents and Shen Shao all loved her as if their lives depended on it, for a moment I didn't know if she was the unfortunate one, or if I was. When did Shen Shao start to like my eldest sister? I think it was probably after my eldest sister came home. Every time Shen Shao came to see me, Mother would have him go directly to the back courtyard before. He always waited in the front hall. There are women in the back courtyard. How could he just go in and out as he pleased? At that time, I was busy embroidering my wedding dress, and my handmaiden came to report that the prince had arrived. But I waited for a long while and didn't see anyone, so I went out to look for him, only to see Shen Shao standing outside my eldest sister's courtyard from a distance. It was windy that day, and my eldest sister, in a white gauze dress, was sitting in the courtyard playing the chin. When the wind blew, it was as if a fairy from the heavens was about to ride the wind and fly away. Shen Shao was captivated. I, in the distance, was also stunned. It turned out that Shen Shao came every day, but his purpose was never me. Mother said our wedding was imminent, so she had Shen Shao come over more often, on one hand to deepen our relationship, and on the other hand so he could discuss the wedding matters with me. But it was all fake. She was just using me to pave the way for my eldest sister. But why did she have to steal the path that Grandma left for me? I don't know how long they had been seeing each other like this, but when I found out, the next day was the wedding. A lump of foul air was stuck in my heart. I couldn't swallow it or spit it out. My eldest sister is like my nightmare. I can't get rid of her no matter what. I used to think that as long as I left this family, everything would be settled. But in the end, they wouldn't even let go of my marriage. In my dream, I seemed to see my grandmother. She stood in the distance, smiling at me lovingly, with a bright sun behind her. I ran towards her crying, but I pounced on nothing. When I woke up again, my pillow was wet. My marriage was personally decreed by the Empress Dowager, and I was raised by my grandmother since I was a child. Although my parents don't dote on me, they are counting on me to bring glory to the family. I originally thought that as long as I was good enough, I would bring honor to the Shu family, but I was wrong again. My eldest sister is their daughter, and I am just a tool for them to maximize their interests. I got into the bridal sedan chair with a heavy heart, until the moment before the wedding ceremony. I was still thinking, maybe this is fate. I should accept it. But I never expected that my eldest sister would have a miscarriage. Although she was in poor health, she had been treated by a doctor, who said that as long as she rested quietly, there would be no problem. I didn't expect it to be like this, but I don't understand. Why was the news of her miscarriage sent directly to Shen Shao? Before I could recover from the news, Shen Shao had already thrown away the red silk in his hand and hurried to the Shu residence. He really left me to find my eldest sister. I lifted my veil to face the guests, and for a moment I couldn't even cry, because I still had to deal with this mess. Shen Shao is a prince. He has the capital to be willful. I do not overnight. I became the talk of the entire capital after tea and meals. But Shen Shao and my elder sister became a pair of lovers who were in love but couldn't be together. How ridiculous. It just so happened that at this time, the Empress Dowager caught a cold and summoned me to the palace to attend to her. I knew the Empress Dowager was helping me out of this predicament, and at the same time, she was backing me up. She wanted to take the opportunity to warn my parents that I still had her as my backer. Sure enough, Shen Shao came on the second day I was in the palace. I thought the Empress Dowager had him come to the palace to make peace with me, but he knelt directly before her. He said that he wanted to marry my elder sister. The Empress Dowager was so angry she threw a whole set of teacups at him, but he didn't move an inch, remaining resolute. In the end, it was me who pushed him out, saying the Empress Dowager was sick, and we could talk about whatever it was later. Shen Shao looked at me with a gloomy gaze. If the Empress Dowager didn't agree, he would kneel there and not get up. My heart wrenched with even more pain. He was so unexpectedly resolute. I had thought that the stunning impression of a few short days could not possibly outweigh our decade-plus of affection. But I was too naive after all. He had fallen for my elder sister, a true love for which he wouldn't hesitate to fall out with the Empress Dowager. Then what about me? What am I considered to be? It turns out he was just like my parents, in their hearts. I am nothing but a tool. In the downpour, I stood in the rain with Shen Shao for quite a while. In the end, I resolutely turned around. Forget it. I'll just let her have it all. I, drenched in rainwater, knelt on the ground and had an earnest talk with the Empress Dowager for nearly an hour. Later, when I went to Shen Shao with the divorce letter, he was stunned. He looked at the divorce agreement in my hand in shock. And only after a long while did he say, "Wan, I never thought of divorcing you." My voice was faint, but I want to. I have already signed my name and pressed my handprint on the divorce papers. After handing it over to Shen Shao, I left the imperial palace that very night. Nobody knew where I went. By the time the sky was bright, I was already far from the capital. Ming Wan, a woman's voice called out. I turned around to see my good sister since childhood, Qian. Lin Qian comes from a family of physicians. Her grandfather is the head of the Imperial Medical Academy, and she has learned excellent medical skills since she was a child. Lin Qian handed me a packet of food. You could have enjoyed a perfectly good life in the capital, but you just had to come with us to suffer at the border. I looked back at the resting army, feeling an unprecedented ease in my heart. There are none of those annoying people here, and I no longer have anything on me that they could covet. Back then, my grandmother saved the Empress Dowager's life in an accident, and the Empress Dowager always remembered that life-saving favor. Before my grandmother passed away, she asked the Empress Dowager to grant me 3 boons, and the Empress Dowager agreed. Last night, I used up all 3 of those boons at once. First, I asked the Empress Dowager to grant me a divorce. Second, I begged the Empress Dowager to back me up. I, Xu Mingwan, will sever all ties with the Xu family from now on. Third, I begged the Empress Dowager to permit me to follow the main army to the border. I once learned how to treat the wounded from Lin Qian, and I want to go to the military camp to do my small part. 3 months later, I finally arrived at the border. This place is not quite like I imagined. I had thought it would be a place ravaged by war and utter tragedy. But what I saw was a vast and boundless grassland, and eagles soaring freely. Especially the common folk in the town were cheerful and living in harmony, not looking like war refugees at all. I heard this has to do with the Crown Prince personally overseeing the army and holding the fort. The current Crown Prince Shen Zhao is a ruthless and decisive man. With him here, even the enemy army wouldn't dare to act rashly. The night we arrived at the military camp, the Crown Prince personally welcomed us. I stood to the side with the army's medical team. Shen Zhao's gaze swept over and stopped on me. Xu Mingwan. Crown Prince Shen Zhao and Shen Shao are both the Empress's legitimate sons, but the 2 brothers have completely different personalities. Shen Shao has an indifferent personality, but his emotions are quite exposed. Shen Zhao, however, is different. He has been the Crown Prince since childhood, so he is extremely deep and calculating. I once heard my grandfather say that His Highness the Crown Prince is so meticulous in his thoughts that even the current emperor has a hard time guessing what is on his mind. I didn't have much contact with Shen Zhao, but the impression was deep. I still remember when I was 10. One time I was flying a kite near the East Palace, and the string broke, so the kite got blown onto a tree in the East Palace's courtyard. I ran inside to find the kite, but was stopped by the palace servants. They didn't seem to want me to go inside, but before I could explain anything, Shen Zhao came out. I saw him leap lightly and get the kite down for me. He was 15 that year, full of spirit in his white robes. When he handed the kite back to me, he had a kind smile on his face, looking so much better than the often stern-faced Shen Shao. I curtsied to thank him, but accidentally glimpsed the bloody dagger hidden in his sleeve. My heart skipped a beat. I looked up to meet his smiling eyes, and my mind buzzed for a moment. I don't remember how I fled the Eastern Palace that day. I only know that from then on, I hid far away from Shen Zhao every time I saw him. What are you spacing out for? Shen Zhao's voice came. My body jolted, and only then did I realize that Zhenggong Xingdi, already been brought into the tent by him for questioning. Unlike the childishness of his youth after a few years of not seeing him, he had already transformed into a true king, dressed in all black. He was naturally imposing without being angry. His aura was in no way inferior to the emperor's, and even had an extra touch of murderous air. I am questioning you. What did you come here for? Shen Zhao stood before me, his tall figure completely blocking the candlelight. I shifted my body to the side and said, I have no home, so I came. I don't believe he is unaware of what happened in the capital, so there is no need to explain. Nonsense. Shen Zhao roared in a deep voice, and I jumped in fright again. He caught my movement. Are you afraid of me? The fear from my childhood is really not easy to dispel. After a moment, he turned and sat down by the small table. This isn't a place for you to throw a tantrum tomorrow. I will arrange for someone to send you back to Kyoto. I'm not going back, I said it decisively. Even though I'm afraid of him, I have to stick to my principles. Since I'm already here, I won't back down. Shen Zhao seemed not to have expected me to be so firm. He stared at me for a long while, and finally only said one thing. If that is the case, then don't regret it. An hour later, I came out of Shen Zhao's tent. Lin Qian was waiting for me. Seeing me come out, she hurriedly came up to me. You scared me to death. Did His Highness give you a hard time? I shook my head. His Highness said to let me go with you all to the medical camp first thing tomorrow morning. Lin Qian's eyes widened suddenly. Besides wounded soldiers, there are only refugees over there. What are you going there for? I held Lin Qian's arm. I didn't come here to enjoy myself anyway. This is pretty good. I think Shen Zhao probably wants me to back off after seeing the difficulties. Because early the next morning, when I arrived at the medical camp with the team of physicians, even though I had fully prepared myself mentally, I was still stunned by the scene before me. Even though I felt my suffering in Kyoto was immense, it was insignificant in front of these wounded soldiers and refugees. In an instant, I understood that sentence from Shen Zhao. This isn't a place for me to throw a tantrum. He was right. All my backyard squabbles and romantic affairs are not even worth mentioning here, but I still don't regret making this choice. Here I feel needed, instead of being treated like a tool everywhere when I was in Kyoto. I got familiar with things quickly, following behind Lin Qian to help out, and soon I could handle some minor injuries and pains by myself. In just a few days, I went from being the young lady of the past to Miss Xu in the medical camp. Everyone likes me a lot, probably because I have a gentle personality and love to laugh. Many children even refuse to take their medicine if they don't see me. Every day I wear plain clothes with no makeup, busy from the moment I open my eyes in the morning until I fall asleep as soon as my head hits the pillow at night. I haven't thought about those people in Kyoto for a long time. Looking at me like this, Lin Qian said she didn't know if bringing me here was the right decision. She said I was supposed to be a high and mighty princess. Why on earth did I have to come to a place like this to suffer? I know she feels sorry for me, but I really don't think this is suffering, because every day I lose myself in everyone's praises. Here I am never the Xu family's young lady. I am just me, Xu Mingwan, the Xu Mingwan that everyone needs. Seeing that I was still determined despite the hardship, Lin Qian smiled and joked that if this continued, she wouldn't let me go back. I never thought about going back. In the blink of an eye, I've already been in the Fair Eichel camp for almost a month. As early winter arrived, the border was unlike Kyoto. It had already snowed early. Some of the elderly and children with weak immune systems got sicker, and the demand for medicinal herbs increased. This day, Lin Qian sent me to the slightly more distant Lin City to collect some medicinal herbs for an emergency. Everything was going smoothly, but on the way back, I encountered mountain bandits. I only had 2 guards with me, but they had 20 to 30 men. Just as the guards sent out a signal, the other party surrounded us. In the end, I fell down a hillside while protecting the medicinal herbs, and before I lost consciousness, I seemed to hear Shen Zhao's voice. When I woke up again, I was already lying in Shen Zhao's military tent. Since you're awake, get up and drink your medicine. His words lacked warmth, but they still made me, who had just experienced a life-and-death situation, feel warm. I was out of danger. When I was surrounded by those people, I had even thought of no less than dozens of ways to die, but I actually made it back. Shen Zhao stood by the bed holding a bowl of medicine. He is not one to take care of people like this, so seeing him like this now was actually a bit cute. You have some scrapes. Lin Qian has already applied medicine for you. Rest here for the next few days. I will go to General Lin's tent. General Lin Yuan is Lin Qian's younger brother. The few of us grew up playing together and have a very good relationship. At the age of 15, he joined the army and left his hometown. Later, Lin Qian also followed him to the border. The entire Lin family are Shen Zhao's people. Hiss. Just as I was thinking, Shen Zhao flicked my forehead with his finger. What are you thinking about? Drink your medicine. I felt a bit wronged. This person is too fierce. I'm scared. No, I have to recover from my injuries quickly and leave this place. Don't even think about it. Even after you've recovered, I won't let you go back to the medical camp. Shen Zhao kept his word. And sure enough, he didn't make me go back again. But at the same time, he also made adjustments to the medical camp. The main medical force was still over there, with Lin Qian in charge, and a portion of the people who were almost healed were sent back to the military camp to recuperate ahead of time, with me leading a small team to take care of them. By dispersing like this, the pressure on both of us was much less. On this day, while I was changing the dressings for the wounded, I happened to overhear them talking about the bandit extermination that day. It turned out that Shen Zhao had long been planning to deal with those mountain bandits. And it just so happened that he planned to take action that day. I guess I was lucky. Otherwise Shen Zhao and the others wouldn't have arrived so timely. Miss Xu, you have no idea. That day when His Highness saw you fall off the mountain, his eyes went red with anxiety, and he killed a bandit leader on the spot. My hand trembled, and I remembered the short dagger in his sleeve again. Originally, when we set out, His Highness said to leave a few alive, but when he saw you were injured, His Highness didn't leave a single one alive. Perhaps my expression was too nervous. A soldier next to him nudged the man. Don't talk about these things, Miss Xu will be scared. Hearing this, that soldier quickly explained. Xu, please don't misunderstand. Those mountain bandits burned, killed, and plundered, committing every possible crime. Who knows how many daughters from good families they ruined? So His Highness is not indiscriminately killing the innocent. Xu Mingwan. Before we finished talking, Shen Zhao called me. I got up and followed him into the tent, and there was medicinal soup in front of me again. Can I not drink it? No. Actually, my injury has already healed. There is no need. If you're not going to drink, then hurry up and go back to Kyoto. Don't be here making trouble for me. He is just like that. He never talks properly. While his back was turned and he couldn't see me, I gave him a hard glare. By the time he turned back around, I had already put on a well-behaved expression and held up the empty bowl. Here, is this good enough now? After finishing the medicine, I was about to go back out to work, but Shen Zhao stopped me again. The moment I turned back, before I could even see the figure that flashed before my eyes, I just felt What? A light sweetness spread between my teeth. Shen Zhao's face was still stern. From now on, if you drink your medicine obediently, there will be rock candy to eat. But if you don't drink it on time, I'll send you away. For some reason, I suddenly really wanted to cry. After my grandparents passed away, no one ever took care of me like this again. Shen Zhao had probably never seen me with such an expression, he said with some disdain. The grand-granddaughter of the grand tutor, and a single piece of candy gets you this emotional. So it turns out I had been crying. Realizing I'd lost my composure, I quickly wiped my eyes and smilingly told Shen Zhao not to mind. But Shen Zhao's expression was serious. For a girl, there is nothing wrong with being a bit delicate. I didn't answer him, but instead decided to leave. Imperial grandmother was going to make you a commandery princess. Wouldn't it be good to stay by her side and enjoy a life of comfort? Why did you insist on coming out here to suffer this hardship? My choice, in everyone's eyes, is suffering. Yet, I myself am enjoying it. Those so-called relatives, I don't want to see them for a single moment. But who can I say these words to? And who can understand me? It is my own pain to begin with. How could others? I collected my emotions and was about to leave, when Shen Zhao's voice came from behind me again. Xu Mingwan, is there really no one left in this world for you to rely on? Rely on whom? I stopped in my tracks but didn't turn back. I asked him back. Perhaps he didn't know either. Who can I rely on? My father, mother, and older sister, or my husband, my childhood sweetheart? I dare not think. The people I considered closest to me all treat me this way. Could there be anyone else in this world I can rely on? A tear slid down, but I smiled. Perhaps the children in the medical camp and those soldiers outside will be the ones I rely on. With them around, I feel like a living person. My injuries have completely healed. I've proposed several times to move out of Shen Zhao's tent, but this man is used to being domineering. He just won't allow it. When I made a big fuss, he would say that same line again. If you don't listen, I'll send you away. Every time I'd be so angry I'd stomp my feet. And sometimes I'd even call him by his name directly. Shen Zhao, you only know how to scare me. But not only did Shen Zhao not get angry, he would even provoke me with a smile. Then you can try and see. See if I'm just scaring you or if I'm for real. Damn it. This man has really gotten a hold of my weak spot. Although Shen Zhao doesn't rest in the main tent at night, he has to come back during the day to handle official business. I rest in another partitioned room, and during the day I'm often outside taking care of the soldiers. Actually, we didn't see each other often, but every time we did, we'd inevitably bicker and argue. The weather got colder and colder, so Shen Zhao had someone partition off another cubicle for me in the main tent, specifically for treating the soldiers. He said I was often outside joking and laughing with them, and it was very noisy whenever he passed by. This guy is so weird, complaining I'm noisy but not letting me leave. After a few more days, he had someone add several more charcoal braziers to my cubicle. I still remember Fate that day. He still had a sullen look on his face, saying that the weather had gotten cold, and he couldn't let the soldiers coming for treatment and dressing changes freeze. Along with me, I pouted, and rolled my eyes where he couldn't see. If you glare again, I'll blindfold you. I jumped in shock. Does this guy have eyes in the back of his head? Recently, the enemy camp has been very quiet, and the soldiers were all in great health. I spent my days chatting with the soldiers and bickering with Shen Zhao, and time flew by, and this little room of mine became more and more lively. The soldiers would come by every day, either to bring me some food or just to chat. Some even wanted to write letters to their sweethearts back home, so they'd come ask me to write for them. Finally, one time when the soldiers brought me some wild game, I was met with Shen Zhao's gloomy face. None of you are training. Do you all want to go die on the battlefield or what? The soldiers were terrified of him. Shen Zhao had never shown up when they visited me before, so over time, they'd forgotten that this place was actually his main tent. Shen Zhao got angry, and all the soldiers knelt on the ground to plead for forgiveness. Everyone, go out and receive 30 military beatings. Yes. I got anxious and wanted to plead for them, but I knew this was a military camp, and I couldn't break Shen Zhao's rules. But the soldiers were being punished because of me, and I couldn't bear it. After thinking it over and over, I waited until no one was left in the main tent before I dared to plead for them. But Shen Zhao insisted. He was unshakable. As a last resort, I used my trump card. Your Highness, you might as well just punish me along with them. You're being ridiculous. I knew this wasn't good either, but these few soldiers had just recovered from serious injuries. And besides, when they came to find me, they had just come down from the training grounds and didn't delay anything. To be honest, I felt that Shen Zhao's anger this time was a bit inexplicable. Although I don't understand warfare, I was the one who personally took care of the soldiers' injuries. And thinking about those bloody wounds truly made my heart ache. I pleaded again, asking if the punishment could be a little lighter, so their wounds wouldn't reopen. But Shen Zhao was stern and righteous, saying that real men shed blood on the battlefield. So, what is so strange about bleeding and sweating? It seemed like the more I pleaded, the angrier he got. For every one sentence I said, he had 10 in return. I couldn't out-argue him, and my eyes turned red with anger, so I just forcefully stomped on his foot. Shen Zhao, if my soldiers' bodies have problems again, I won't forgive you. What I said was greatly disrespectful. The person before me was the dignified crown prince, and also the commander of an army. How could he tolerate such impertinence from me? After my insolence, I became scared, and before Shen Zhao could react from his shock, I quickly ran back to my own tent. I didn't dare go out until nighttime, afraid I'd run into Shen Zhao. The tent flap moved, and my heart jumped into my throat. Not eating dinner? Not returning to the tent. Are you trying to starve to death or freeze to death? Shen Zhao entered, and I shot up with a whoosh. He walked towards me, so I backed away. All the passionate bravado from the daytime completely forgotten, looking like a total coward. What? Where is the spirit you had when you were scolding me? I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Shen Zhao had no patience. In one step, he came over and clamped down on my wrist. I flinched and tried to get away. But he wouldn't let me. He just stretched out his long arm, wrapped it around me, and then directly threw me over his shoulder and carried me back to his tent. There were many soldiers outside, and every single one of them lowered their heads, not daring to look. I pounded on Shen Zhao, telling him to put me down. Once in the main tent, Shen Zhao threw me directly onto the bed. Mingwan, you are to stay here and eat and sleep properly. I have to go out tonight. When I get back, I have something to tell you, understand? It was only then that I realized Shen Zhao was wearing night gear. For some reason, my heart suddenly tightened. Your Highness, what are you going to do? Shen Zhao suddenly smiled and ruffled the top of my hair. What? Worried about me? He said. Me war, not the cold. Imperial Eye Ghoul. I realized I was losing my composure a bit, and quickly gave him a shove. Who is worried about you? Go and come back quickly. Shen Zhao seemed to be in a good mood, and wanted to joke with me a bit more. But the voices of the guards came from outside the tent. It was time for them to set off. Shen Zhao gave me a deep look, then turned and left. As he walked to the entrance, I stood up and said in a low voice, "Be safe." Shen Zhao's steps paused for a moment. He didn't turn back, but instead quickened his pace and left. At night, Lin Qian entered with a meal. Seeing that they were all my favorite dishes, I couldn't help but smile and thank her. But Lin Qian waved her hand, saying she was just acting on someone's request. On whose request? Lin Qian also has a very high status here. No one can order her around except for Shen Zhao. While the two of us were eating, Lin Qian casually brought up the matter of my argument with Shen Zhao. Mingwan, did you know? His Highness has never taken back his words before. Not having seen those soldiers, I thought they had really gone to receive their punishment. I never expected that Shen Zhao had actually exempted them from punishment. Lin Qian patted my hand and said that she heard from Lin Yuan that ever since I left the tent, His Highness had stayed in the main tent for the entire afternoon and didn't even eat dinner. I was a little moved. I thought that this time when Shen Zhao comes back, I definitely won't go against him anymore. But I waited for a whole night, and Shen Zhao never came back. I asked Lin Yuan, and he said he should have been back in the later part of the night. He is not back by now, so he has probably been delayed on the way. After waiting for another day, my heart was in my throat. Towards evening, a small troop of men rushed back to the camp covered in blood, and in their arms, I saw the unconscious Shen Zhao. My hand slipped and I broke the medicine bowl, and I didn't snap out of it until Lin Qian pulled me into the room. The sight of so much blood blurred my vision. I've seen so many wounded people, but this was the first time I felt so helpless. Mingwan, take off His Highness's clothes. Okay. My voice was trembling as I suppressed my inner panic, and then I used scissors to cut away Shen Zhao's clothes. I couldn't even see where the wounds were. All I saw was that he was covered in blood, his face deathly pale. Lin Qian and I worked through the entire night, and his condition finally stabilized. Lin Qian breathed a sigh of relief. The aftercare is just as important. I'm leaving the rest to you. My eyes were fixed on Shen Zhao, and I was filled with a worry I had never felt before. Shen Zhao was unconscious for nearly 10 days. Although he would wake up briefly each day, he was never fully lucid. I stayed by his side to care for him, almost without sleep or rest. One day, when I went out to get medicine for Shen Zhao, I saw Lin Yuan with a troubled look on his face. After asking, I learned that a sudden blizzard a few days ago had cut off the provisions and medicinal herbs being transported from the capital halfway. Although Lin Yuan has already sent people to meet the convoy, the grain in stock is only enough for a few days. If there is another accident on the way, I'm afraid it will delay important matters. I glanced back in the direction of the tent. Shen Zhao is unconscious right now, and many things can't be done without his written order. In the afternoon, after changing Shen Zhao's medicine, I went out. I called for Lin Yuan and had him take me to the bank in Lincheng. Just as I gave a box full of silver notes to Lin Yuan, telling him to purchase provisions and medicinal herbs. Lin Qian came rushing over. She snatched the box. "Are you crazy? This is your dowry." Lin Yuan was also stunned and immediately refused, saying the camp hadn't reached the point of being out of supplies yet. And besides, the reinforcements were arriving soon. No matter what, they couldn't use my dowry. I insisted on my decision. Whether the supplies will arrive in time is an unknown, and the things in stock won't last more than a few days. It is winter now, so we must plan ahead. Besides, these are just material possessions, and it is more meaningful to let the soldiers use them. Lin Qian still wanted to say something, but I smiled, took her arm, and told her that I've kept everything my grandparents left me, and that these things I took out really aren't important. A few more days passed, and Shen Zhao finally woke up. That day, I was brewing medicine in the dispensary when a young soldier came to tell me that His Highness had woken up and wanted to see me. I hurried back to the tent, but before I had a chance to speak, Shen Zhao roared right at me. "Who told you to touch your dowry? Do I need a woman to support me?" After getting along for so long, I'm already not afraid of him. I went up to tuck in the corners of his blanket for him, then sat by the bed to feed him his medicine. "Your Highness doesn't need a woman to support you, but you do need a woman to take care of you." Shen Zhao turned his face away to ignore me. Being a bit weak like this, Shen Zhao's expression shifted. Then he turned his head to look at me. "Then you can make a list later. When I return to the capital, I will repay you tenfold. No, 100-fold. Shen Zhao's injuries recovered very quickly, and Lin Qian said he is basically fine now. But I don't know if this guy was doing it on purpose. I often saw him sparring with Lin Yuan, with a posture that made him look completely recovered. Yet whenever he saw me, he'd still put on a sick and listless look. He couldn't even hold the medicine bowl steady, insisting that I had to be the one to feed him. There was nothing I could do. He is the crown prince, so I could only obey. I fed him 3 meals and 3 doses of medicine a day as usual. And I don't know if it was my imagination, but I always felt that Shen Zhao's chin had gotten a bit rounder. That batch of supplies on the road indeed ran into trouble. If I hadn't had Lin Yuan purchase those provisions in advance, the soldiers would never have made it through this winter. Because of this, my status in the hearts of the soldiers rose a bit more. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was New Year's Eve. Shen Zhao gave his permission today, so everyone could let loose a little and have some fun. However, to be on the safe side, we still couldn't let our guard down too much. I had New Year's Eve dinner with everyone. They were all in high spirits, chatting away. But I felt a little sad. I got up and went to a secluded place to look at the moon. I miss my grandfather and grandmother so much. I kowtowed in the direction of my hometown, and when I got up, there was a warmth behind me. Shen Zhao put his cloak on me. "I have to go back to the capital in early spring. Is there anything you need me to bring for you?" Shen Zhao is someone who understands me well. He no longer mentioned sending me back, and didn't even ask if I wanted to go back. Back in the tent, I handed the newly written 100 longevity, calligraphy to Shen Zhao. "I can't personally wish the Empress Dowager a happy birthday. Your Highness, please deliver it for me." Shen Zhao nodded, and didn't ask anything else. He knew that place was no longer my home, and bringing it up would only needlessly add to my sadness. Yuan, this time returning to the capital. "Your Highness, the supplies have arrived. The troops are about to reach the camp." Shen Zhao's expression changed slightly. He seemed to want to tell me something, but in the end, he only told me to rest early, that it would be busy outside, and I shouldn't go out. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, I got up early and cooked dumplings for Shen Zhao, Lin Yuan, Lin Qian, and the kids from the medical camp. I personally delivered Shen Zhao's bowl, but he wasn't in his tent, so I had to place the bowl on his desk. He must have been busy all night again. The scrolls scattered on the desk hadn't been tidied up yet. I reached out to tidy them up for him and heard footsteps behind me. I don't turn around, but complain out loud. "Your Highness is so used to ordering me around. When I go back to the medical camp in a few days, let's see who will take care of you." Saying this, I point to the bowl beside me. "The dumplings are freshly cooked. Eat them while they're hot. They'll get cold in a bit. Mingwan. Before I could finish my sentence, the person behind me suddenly pulled me into his arms. Mingwan, you were so hard to find. It is Shen Xiao. My body went rigid for a moment. Then I immediately tried to struggle free. Let go. Mingwan, you are so heartless. How could you just let go of our many years of feelings just like that? Shen Xiao is a martial artist. If he was determined to hold me, I couldn't break free at all. The voices of Shen Zhao and a guard talking came from outside the tent. Shen Xiao, figuring I wouldn't dare to make a sound, lowered his head and moved in to kiss my neck. Shen Zhao. In my desperation, I called out Shen Zhao's name. I was stunned myself as the sound left my lips. Shen Zhao seemed to pause for a moment, then immediately rushed into the main tent. With a thud, Shen Xiao was kicked to the ground by Shen Zhao. This is a military camp, a place of importance. How dare you act so presumptuously? I was shaking with anger, my eyes blazing as I looked at Shen Xiao. Ninth Highness, I will be sure to report your actions today truthfully to the Empress Dowager and His Majesty. Shen Zhao shielded me behind him. Are you hurt? I shook my head. I wasn't hurt. Just angry. Very angry. Shen Zhao raised his hand and smoothed my messy hair bun. I put the New Year's gift in your tent. Want to go back and take a look? I glanced at Shen Xiao, knowing Shen Zhao wanted to send me away. I nodded, then turned and left. After coming out of the tent, I went to the medical camp. I didn't want to see Shen Xiao's face again, nor did I want to hear him say anything. In the afternoon, Lin Qian came back from the camp. Usually, Lin Qian doesn't go over to the camp much if there is nothing going on, but today she stayed there for the entire afternoon. Why are you back so late? Did someone get hurt? Lin Qian looked at me with a complicated expression. His Highness the Crown Prince injured His Highness the Ninth Prince. My hand paused, and I looked at Lin Qian in shock. Turns out, not long after I left this morning, Shen Zhao beat up Shen Xiao, even dislocating his arm. I have to say, I was actually kind of satisfied. Although Shen Xiao also practices martial arts, he has been living a pampered life in the capital for years. How could he be a match for Shen Zhao? A faint smile played on my lips as I thought of the buyao hairpin Shen Zhao had placed in my tent. In the days leading up to New Year's Eve, Shen Zhao went into town every day. Lin Yuan said it seemed like Shen Zhao had a sweetheart, because the usually stern and cold crown prince was actually smiling every day, and even frequently visited jewelry shops that only women would browse. I still remember at that time Lin Qian stepped on Lin Yuan's foot, signaling him not to say any more. But Lin Yuan is a straightforward person, and even shouted loudly that it is a good thing His Highness has a sweetheart. So, why can't he say it, turns out? He started preparing this gift a long time ago. Before dinner, I packed my things and went back to the camp. But outside the camp, I saw Shen Xiao again. One of his arms was hanging in front of his chest, and I couldn't help but sigh to myself that Shen Zhao's hand is really heavy. I turned to hide, but Shen Xiao called out to me. Mingwan, don't hide. I won't bully you. I just want to talk to you. I stood at a distance of at least 5 steps from him. If you have something to say, just say it here. Shen Xiao looked at me, his expression a bit sad. Mingwan, you weren't like this before. In the past, even if I had a headache or a fever, you'd be worried sick. You would secretly come to the prince's mansion to bring me medicine. And you would also. Is Shu Mingyu not treating your highness well? My single sentence choked Shen Xiao, his face full of difficulty. He closed his eyes for a moment. Mingwan, have you fallen in love with my imperial brother? His Highness and I are completely innocent. I didn't answer. On the contrary, Shen Xiao's expression was a bit unnatural. What right does he have to meddle in the business between me and Shen Zhao? Besides, we're an unmarried man and an unmarried woman. Aren't we more upright and above board than that Shen Xiao? Unwilling to get too entangled with Shen Xiao, he walked around him intending to leave. I didn't sign the divorce papers. My heart suddenly sank. Shen Xiao walked over to me. Mingwan, you are still my wife right now. I was instantly enraged. Shen Xiao, you're utterly shameless. Shen Xiao used his other hand to pull me, and I forcefully shook him off. Does Your Highness want this hand to be dislocated too? Don't forget, this is a military camp, not a place where you can mess around. Perhaps my voice was a bit too loud, for it attracted the patrolling soldiers. Miss Shudo, you need my help? A wave of warmth flooded my heart, and I shook my head. No need. Go on with your duties. That soldier stared at Shen Xiao very warily, and even after moving some distance away, he still lingered nearby. This was the first time I felt so self-assured, unlike in the capital, where I was all alone and helpless after my grandparents passed away. But now, here, I have so many family members, and they are all my support. Shen Xiao was obviously taken aback by me too. He looked at me in disbelief, as if he were seeing me for the first time. It is true. Growing up, I had always been gentle and obedient. If that weren't the case, I wouldn't have been bullied by them so much. After a long silence, Shen Xiao spoke. Wan, me imperial brother is not your destiny. You no longer have the Shu family to back you up, and you were once my wife. Father Emperor will never allow a person like you to become the crown princess. What kind of person am I? I shot back at Shen Xiao, taking a menacing step towards him. Shen Xiao, what kind of person am I? Didn't we grow up together, don't you know? Me ending up in this mess today. Isn't it all thanks to you people? And now you have the nerve to mock me. How dare you? Shen Xiao knew he had misspoken, so he quickly corrected himself, saying that is not what he meant. He just felt that Shen Zhao and I were not a good match. In short, what he meant was that I only have one way out now, and that is to go back with him and be his princess consort. I sneered. Shen Xiaoyi, don't understand why you're still pestering me, but let me tell you, I've already cut all ties with you and that Shu family. If you people come to pester me again, don't blame me for not holding back. Mingwan, listen here, Shen Xiaoyi, Shu Mingwan, have nothing to tie me down now. If you push me too far, even if it costs me my life, I won't let you people walk all over me again. Returning to my own tent full of anger, Shen Zhao was unexpectedly there. Seeing me enter, he got up and came before me. As for the divorce papers, I'll help you handle it when I get back to the capital. I met Shen Zhao's eyes and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. They're blood brothers. How can they be so different? Shen Zhao is a man of action. He never made any promises, but he always gets things done. In contrast, Shen Xiao made me too many promises, but in the end, he hurt me deeply. But Shen Xiao was right about one thing. Shen Zhao and we probably don't have a future together either, do we? The path I chose has destined that we can't be together. He is the crown prince, and he must eventually return to the capital. And I will not stop my own path for anyone. I smiled and shook my head. Your Highness doesn't need to worry about this. For Shu Mingyu's sake, the Shu parents will naturally force Shen Xiao to divorce me. Just let them be the villains. I understand Shen Xiao. He seems serious and cold on the surface, but deep down, he is extremely indecisive. So even though he was so determined to marry Shu Mingyu back then, after I left, he would be filled with guilt and reluctance towards me. When I decided to leave back then, this was actually what I had in mind. I took a gamble, betting that after all these years, Shen Xiao had feelings for me, and betting that after I left, the Shu family wouldn't get what they wanted either. Sure enough, the moment Shen Xiao appeared at the military camp, I knew I had won the bet. Because although Shen Xiao wanted to marry Shu Mingyu, he never thought about shaking my position as the official wife. As long as he had this thought, my very existence would forever disgust the Shu family. They've been disgusting me for so long. So this isn't going too far, is it? News came from the capital telling Shen Zhao and Shen Xiao to return early. Before the warmth of spring and blooming flowers arrived, as if sensing our not-so-good moods, it snowed heavily on the day they left. Shen Zhao was still off to the side giving instructions, but Shen Xiao looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. He wanted to beg me to go back with him. He said that as long as I went back with him, he would agree to anything. I changed my usual stern and cold demeanor, lowered my head with reddened eyes and said, "Your Highness, please take care of yourself." I didn't directly refuse him, but looking like this, Anyun would think I was making a reluctant compromise. I addressed him as Your Highness like I used to, which made Shen Xiao's expression instantly brighten. He tried to take my hand, but I dodged back. Since it has come to this, Your Highness should go back and treat my sister well. We are not fated to be in this life. Shen Xiao's expression turned complicated. He stared at me fixedly, and finally told me to wait for news from him. I sneered inwardly. I'll definitely be waiting to hear your good news. Shen Xiao's carriage left first. After watching him depart, I turned around and saw Shen Zhao. The expression on my face dropped in an instant, and I looked at him. A little awkwardly. What a little temptress! I thought Shen Zhao would be angry, but he wasn't. He raised his hand to straighten the hair at my temples. That was an act for him. But what about with me? Your Highness sees everything. I wouldn't dare, Shen Zhao chuckled softly. Then put his thick fox fur cloak on me. Take care of yourself. I'll be back as soon as possible. I nodded, but still grumbled internally that it probably wouldn't be easy for him to come back from this trip. Shen Xiao had told me the other day that the emperor has already started searching for a crown princess for Shen Zhao. No matter who that person is, it won't be me. Life in the military camp carried on in an orderly manner. Shen Zhao sends me a box at the beginning of every month, and inside it is full of letters and all kinds of new and interesting things. I can recite the contents of that letter by heart, but I've never replied, not even once. This thought buried deep in my heart, just let it grow wildly in there on its own. As for Shen Zhao, he will never belong to me. He belongs to the people of the land besides being Shen Zhao. He is also the crown prince, the future monarch. He has never made any promises to me, and I have never pinned any hopes on him either. This world alone is the home he left for me. When the 12th box was saved up, it snowed again in the military camp. On New Year's Eve, wearing the bright red cloak, Semao sent by Shen Zhao, I still kowtowed in the direction of my hometown. Not far away is the sound of soldiers drinking and chatting. A peace of mind I've never had before. Grandfather, grandmother, Mingwan is doing very well now, and is very happy. It was time for Shen Zhao to send me things again, but up until the 15th of the first lunar month, I hadn't received any news, not even a verbal message. I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. After midnight, Lin Qian and I were drinking in the tent. Lin Qian has a sweetheart. Shen Zhao's adjutant Xian Jia, man who is handsome, yet upright to the point of being almost pedantic. Lin Qian pursued him for a few years, but he either avoided her or just rejected her. But from what I could see, it is not that he was uninterested in Lin Qian. Perhaps he was just bothered that his own status wasn't good enough, that he wasn't worthy of Lin Qian. Lin Qian had a bit too much to drink, and slurring her words, she patted my shoulder. Hick, Wan, don't be scared. From now on, we sisters will rely on each other. We don't need those stinky men anymore. I laughed and agreed with her, then got up. You sit here for a bit. I'm going to bring some sweet rice balls to a Yuan and the others. Lin Qian stood up, swaying. I'll go with you. The two of us arrived outside Lin Yuan's tent, and before we even went in, we heard people talking inside. These are His Highness's orders. Please, General, you must keep this a secret. Above all, you must not tell Miss Xu. A wave of unease washed over me, and I lifted the curtain flap to enter the main tent. What is it that you can't tell me? However, when I entered the tent, I was stunned too. The person before me was none other than Shen Zhao's personal guard. Feng Ming. Commander Feng, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be by His Highness's side? As I spoke, my gaze fell upon the desk. A letter was lying on it. It looked ordinary on the surface, but I recognized the special mark in the corner of the envelope. That was Shen Zhao's unique mark, which would never be used unless it was for an urgent message. I took a step forward. Did something happen in the capital? What about His Highness? Where is he? I stared at Feng Ming. He didn't dare to meet my gaze, but I could still see his reddened eyes. I grew anxious and violently Miss Xu, Lin Yuan came forward and grabbed me, his usually calm voice now trembling. On New Year's Eve, the first prince launched a coup, and His Highness. He was gravely injured while protecting His Majesty. I'm afraid things don't look good. With a thud, my body swayed and bumped into the small table behind me. Lin Qian hurriedly supported me. Wan, don't worry. My grandfather is still in the capital. His Highness will definitely be all right. Lin Qian was just trying to comfort me. If the situation wasn't grim, how would this news have reached the border? But Shen Zhao wrote in his previous letter that he would be back after the new year. He even told me to take good care of myself. How could he go back on his word? I composed myself for a moment, then looked at Feng Ming. You're going back to the capital, right? Wait for me. I'll go back with you. After saying that, I ignored the persuasions of the people behind me and rushed out of the main tent with extremely fast steps. But just as I took a step out the door, I saw more than 20 people standing neatly outside the tent. The moment they saw me, they all knelt on one knee. Your subordinates greet you, Master. I recognized them. They were Shen Zhao's men. Feng Ming also came out of the main tent at this moment and handed me a blood-stained letter. His Highness repeatedly instructed that if anything were to happen, we were to rush back to the camp as soon as possible. His Highness said, from now on, you, Miss, are our master. With the Lin family and you, Miss, at the camp. Only then could His Highness rest assured. His Highness hopes that you, Miss, will not forget your original aspirations, and for your own sake, as well as for His Highness's to protect this piece of land. My hands tightly gripped that. I'm afraid Shen Zhao had long foreseen this day, and had even paved the entire road ahead for me. Lin Qian came over to support me. Wan, the capital is a complete mess. His Highness definitely doesn't want you to go back and risk it. He only hopes that you can live out the rest of your life in peace. I stood in place for a long time, until snowflakes started to fall, just like the snow from when he left last year. I shut myself in the main tent for several days, not eating or drinking, just repeatedly reading those letters Shen Zhao wrote to me. I regret it so much. If I had known this day would come, I would have definitely written him back. I would have told him what I was really thinking. Would have told him how much I missed him. Finally, I wore myself out and got seriously ill. My head was foggy from the fever, and I always felt like I saw Shen Zhao. Half a month later, news came from the capital that the crown prince had passed away. Lin Qian and the others were all worried something would happen to me. But I was calmer than any of them. At night, the entire camp was a sea of plain white. I also changed into a plain white dress and sat blankly in Shen Zhao's main tent for the whole night. After the first 7 days of mourning, we resumed our normal lives. No one mentioned Shen Zhao in front of me again, although I knew they missed him a lot too. It was like we had a tacit understanding. Everyone was so calm it was as if this incident had never happened. However, only I myself knew that I had hidden that blood-stained letter inside my pillow. Only in the dead of night would I bite the corner of my quilt and let my tears stream down. At the height of summer, the camp received 2 pieces of news. The 9th Prince Shen Shaoi's marrying a new princess consort. The border region was partitioned and given to a chronically frail imperial prince as a fiefdom. When I got this news, I was cleaning Shen Zhao's main tent. Lin Qian looked at me, her eyes full of excitement. Do you know who the 9th prince is going to marry? I shook my head. Then do you still remember that young daughter of a concubine from the Prime Minister's residence? 2 years younger than you. I still remember when we were young, the elders used to joke that she looked like you. That compared to Xu Mingyu, you and her were more like sisters. I remembered now, that girl also liked Shen Xiao, and had even caused trouble for me because Shen Xiao and I had a marriage contract. I couldn't help but smile faintly. She is not an easy one to get along with. I'm afraid Xu Mingyu is going to be at a disadvantage this time. Yeah, when Ah Yuan came back from his debriefing, he told me that at first glance, the 9th princess consort really does look a bit like Miss Shuit, is just that her personality is too arrogant and domineering. Lin Qian said, I guessed right. The Shu parents really did pressure Shen Xiao. They wanted him to marry Xu Mingyu as the primary consort. but Shen Xiao insisted that I was to be the primary consort. Later, the Shu family made a big scene. They originally thought the Empress Dowager would let Shu Mingyu marry in out of consideration for my grandmother. But who knew? The Empress Dowager listened to someone, and learned that Shen Xiao and the third daughter of a concubine from the Prime Minister's residence had mutual feelings. The Empress Dowager immediately made the decision to have both girls marry in together. The young lady from the Prime Minister's residence would be the primary consort, and Shu Mingyu would be a concubine. A concubine. I actually didn't expect this. I originally thought that with Shen Xiao's affection for Shu Mingyu, he would at least make her a secondary consort. But I never imagined it would just be a concubine. But then again, it makes sense. Even if Shen Xiao isn't the crown prince, he is still a prince. The Shu family today is not the same as it was before. How could the royal family let a woman who has been married before and has trouble conceiving be the principal consort? A sneer touched the corner of my lips. They had targeted me back then, calculating that if I were the principal consort, Shu Mingyu would surely have a chance to rise in status after she married in. Perhaps they would even have snatched one of my children to be raised by her. I shook my head. Those parents of mine, they are truly capable of anything, but I'm not afraid anymore. I've cut off their path of retreat. Let's see who they can bully from now on. But this isn't enough. For those people from the Shu family, their good fortune is still to come. Actually, I only found out about this later. It turns out all the close friends my grandfather made in his lifetime had received his entrustment. Grandfather's request wasn't much. If the Shu family fell into trouble after his death, as long as I wasn't the one coming forward to ask for help, no one else needed to get involved. The implication was, only if those parents of mine treated me well, could the Shu family rely on me to connect with the network grandfather had built up. If they treated me poorly, then that line of connection would be cut. My father has been weak his entire life. Without grandfather, he didn't have the ability to build the family's fortune by himself. And most of the Shu family's assets were in my dowry. He had used a part of it in the military camp, and the rest was deposited in the capital's bank. This time, Lin Yuan brought it all back for me. At this point, the Shu family in the capital is already in ruins, making it difficult for them to gain a foothold ever again. Everything has settled. Lin Yuan said that the 11th Highness will be coming over in the next few days. The soldiers on the border always have it the hardest and most dangerous. So the first thing this Highness will do upon arriving here is to come and reward the soldiers. Another clever one who knows how to win people's hearts. That is right. They are brothers. So it is natural they have similarities. But for some reason, watching everyone bustling about, I feel a bit uncomfortable. On the day that Highness arrived at the camp, I packed up early in the morning and hid in the medical camp, only instructing them not to touch anything in Shen Zhao's main tent before I left. I know it is not quite right for me to do this, but I can't get over this hurdle in my heart. I don't want to see someone come and take Shen Zhao's place. When I returned in the evening, the camp was filled with joyous laughter. I stood outside the camp for a long time, but in the end, I didn't go in, turning to go to the lakeside instead. In the past, I often came here when I was upset, but Shen Zhao would always accompany me. I haven't come here once since his accident. This is the first time I've cried while facing the lake. Miss Chu hasn't returned to the camp. Is it because you have an issue with me? A familiar voice reached my ears, and my mind went into a daze. This voice, is it Shen Zhao? The sound of footsteps drew near, but I didn't dare to turn back. With trembling hands, I tried hard to calm my state of mind. I wanted to be sure, but in the past 6 months, this kind of illusion has appeared too many times. Even though it felt so real this time, I still didn't dare to be rash. I was deceiving myself, thinking that if I didn't turn back, would this illusion become more real? And would Shen Zhao stay for a little longer? In the midst of my internal struggle, there was a sudden warmth behind me, and I was pulled into an embrace. Mingwan, I'm back. Shen Zhao Sextra, half a year after returning to the camp, I finally married the girl I love. From the first moment I saw Mingwan until now, this road has been truly difficult, because I am the legitimate son. I was born to be the crown prince. Perhaps others think I was born with a good fate, but I envy ninth brother more. I was only born 2 years earlier than him. Yet I couldn't be as free and unfettered as he is. He could show his emotions on his face. He could freely act spoiled with Mother Empress and grandmother. But I had to train from a young age to remain composed, even if Mount Tai were to collapse before me. Even when I found out he was going to marry Mingwan, he could only offer a faint smile and a word of blessing. Later, I went to guard the border and unexpectedly learned that ninth brother and Mingwan had divorced. I don't know why, but amidst my anger, there was actually a hint of secret joy. I thought, after I'm done with things here, I must return to the capital once. I want to see Mingwan. But before I could act, Mingwan came to the border with the Lin family. To think that such a once bright and intelligent woman was tormented to this state by ninth brother and the Shu family. I was heartbroken. I wanted to eagerly express my feelings, but I also felt it would be disrespectful to her. Mingwan grew up with her grandfather and grandmother, and I was also a student of Grand Tutor Shu, so, when it comes to being on the same wavelength, she and I are the most suitable pair. But after careful selection, they chose ninth brother. But, no matter. After all the twists and turns, fate still sent her to my side. I know Mingwan is a resilient woman at heart. Since she has chosen this path, she would absolutely not return to the capital with me. So I made a bold decision. I knew the first prince was ruthlessly ambitious, and his maternal family was powerful. Father Emperor detested him, but was even more wary of him. I used the evidence of the first prince's crimes, which I had gathered over the years, to make a deal with Father Emperor. I would help Father Emperor eliminate the first prince's faction, and in return, Father Emperor would help me slip away. I once had an 11th brother. He died shortly after birth, but it happened to be the imperial grandmother's birthday. So Father Emperor, fearing it would be a bad omen, said he had been sent to a temporary palace to recuperate. After so many years, everyone has already forgotten about this 11th prince. My ambition has never been in that high position. If I could always guard the border, protecting the peace of the people of the region, only then would I have no regrets in this life. I didn't mention Mingwan by a single word, but my imperial father saw everything. After pondering for a while, he asked me, which is more important, the world or a beauty? I answered faintly, if I can pacify the world with a beauty by my side, how wonderful would that be? I don't know what Father Emperor thought of, but he smiled in relief. Go with you at the border, Father Emperor can rest easy. From then on, there was no Crown Prince Shen Zhao in the world. Only the 11th Prince Shen Yi. As for the position of Crown Prince, I proposed the son of my second imperial brother Fei, who passed away early. My second royal brother and his wife were framed and killed by the eldest prince back then, leaving behind only their 5-year-old son. Though not her biological grandson, the Empress Dowager pitied him and raised him by her side. For this reason, this child has been close to me since he was young, even closer than my 9th brother. He also pulled a lot of strings to help me escape this time. On our wedding night, I confessed the whole story to Mingwan. At first, she didn't say anything, but in the end, she shed tears. This silly girl, after suffering so much, in the end she actually said she had a good life, to have grandparents who doted on her so much, and me. Full cast extra, in the 2nd year of my marriage to Shen Zhao, he gave birth to our daughter Shen Changel. As her name suggests, we hope for her to have a long life of peace and joy. On the day of Changel's Yaldinin Day celebration, Shen Zhao came to the border alone and in secret. Perhaps from rushing day and night, he looked much more haggard. I heard he married 2 more side consorts, and I don't know if it is because it is too frequent, which has led to him having no energy or spirit at all now. Shen Zhao and I met him at the mansion in town. He didn't stay for long. He left an extremely valuable Baiyao hairpin for Chang Lei. I refused at first, but he said he is her uncle and that he might not be able to attend Chang Lei's hairpin ceremony, so he prepared the gift in advance. In the end, it was Shen Zhao who accepted the gift. I thought Shen Zhao was no longer hostile to Shen Zhao, but, after taking the things, he said. The carriage is ready. If we leave now, we can get to the next post house before dark. He was so determined to drive people away. I was helpless. And Shen Xiao also smiled wryly. He looked at me as if he wanted to say something. But Shen Zhao was very protective of me and wouldn't leave me for a moment. In the end, helpless, Shen Xiao only said to take care, and then turned and got into the carriage. On the carriage ride back, Shen Zhao hugged me and was fussy for a long time. This guy gets too jealous. I said it is all in the past. So, why still be jealous? But Shen Zhao said the women Shen Xiao married into the prince's manor all have some resemblance to me. I was helpless. And I also knew that the young lady from the prime minister's manor back then was also Shen Zhao's doing. This guy, he is truly very black-bellied. Actually, I pretty much understood in my heart. Shen Xiao has a fickle heart. He didn't get me, so he could never let it go. But that has nothing to do with me anymore. I now have a beautiful daughter, a husband who loves me, and so many family members in the camp that is enough. Shen Zhao and I returned to the camp, and before we even got off the carriage, we heard Lin Qian crying. I got anxious, hurriedly got off the horse carriage and ran to her side. I thought something terrible had happened, but this girl was holding up a rose-pink beaded flower. Wan Wan, look, Shi Yunji gave it to me. Lin Qian and Shi Yunji had been chasing and bickering for many years, and it is said that Shi Yunji finally got it recently. See, he is really grown up. He has even learned how to give gifts now. Lin Qian was crying hard. I thought she was moved. But Lin Qian wiped her snotty nose and said, "But this beaded flower is so ugly. Can I get a different one?" PFFT. Lin Yuan spat out the water in his mouth. Lin Qian was also pulled into Xianji's arms and gently coaxed. And he explained that a rough man like him doesn't understand these things, and he would take her to buy a new one tomorrow. The setting sun sprinkled down like shattered gold, blanketing this land. I snuggled in Shen Zhao's arms and looked up at the sky. Now, the borders are stable, and the people are happy. I couldn't help but miss my grandparents again. I think they can surely see from heaven that their Waner is doing well. And is very happy. Fake Su Mingyu's extra Fei 3 years later. When the 7th beauty was carried into the 9th prince's mansion, I finally snapped. I went to confront Shen Xiao and asked him when he would stop humiliating me. Now even, an actress's rank is higher than mine. The mansion is full of secondary consorts and concubines. While I'm the only serving concubine, I am bullied and humiliated every day. But Shen Xiao never asks about it. Shen Xiao indifferently finished the last stroke of the portrait, then sneered. "Xu Mingyu, back when you schemed to marry this king, did you ever think of this day? Me scheme against him. If he himself hadn't been so fickle back then, how would he have fallen for the scheme? I knew he was the type who is always after the new and gets tired of the old even, if he had feelings for Xu Mingwan. He still couldn't resist my temptation. His perfect plan was to have both. It is just that he never thought Xu Mingwan would be so resolute. He thought he could have the best of both worlds. But in the end, he lost the person he loved." I lowered my eyes. The portrait was of Xu Mingwan. For the past 3 years, his study was filled with portraits of Xu Mingwan, and the rear courtyard was filled with women who looked like Xu Mingwan. Xu Mingwan filled my life like a devil. I was resentful and jealous. I madly wanted to get revenge. But Shen Xiao's princess consort is a very formidable person. She had the prime minister's mansion ruthlessly suppress our Xu family, and now in the prince's mansion, I'm worse off than even a servant. Back when I returned home a widow, Dad and Mom, so that I could have a peaceful rest of my life, chose the easy-to-bully Xu Mingwan, wanting me to share a husband with her. Mother even told me to win over Shen Xiao, and that in the future, Aunt Xu Mingwan gives birth to the eldest son. He would be put under my name. Later on, I could have even taken her place as the principal consort. I was supposed to have such a great future, but Xu Mingwan just had to get a divorce. I hate Xu Mingwan. If she hadn't left, if she hadn't taken away most of the family fortune left by our grandparents, how could the Xu family have declined day by day in the imperial court? And how could I have ended up in this situation? Half a year ago, I had my parents go to the border to find Xu Mingwan. She is such a pushover. She would definitely soften up. But I heard that Xu Mingwan was protected extremely well by that 11th Highness. Mom and Dad went to the border, and were driven out without even seeing the person. I returned to the bedroom, pulled a white cloth doll from the quilt. On it were Xu Mingwan's birth date characters, and a body full of silver needles. As if that wasn't enough to vent my hatred, I viciously stuck many more needles into it. Xu Mingwan, I want you dead. With a bang, the room door was kicked open. It was the princess consort bringing Shen Shao in. The princess consort looked displeased. She looked at Shen Shao. Your Highness, look, Sister Mingwan is already so pitiful, and yet she still. Xu Mingyu, you're the one who should die. Before the princess consort could finish speaking, Shen Shao grabbed me by the throat. When I came to, I was at my own home. Dad and Mom were keeping watch by my bedside. Mom said Shen Shao had already written a letter of divorce, that the 9th prince's mansion cannot have a vicious woman like me. Originally, cursing the princess consort was a crime punishable by death. But my dad sold off our family's property, contributed all the money to the national treasury, just to beg His Majesty to be lenient. I actually forgot. That Faye, even if she lives far away on the border, she is still the proper 11th princess consort. My mom comforted me, while at the same time, not forgetting to curse that Xu Mingwan is a jinx. Later, it was my dad who let out a low roar, blaming my mom that if it weren't for her favoritism back then, how would things have gotten to this point? Mom and Dad started arguing over Xu Mingwan, and even came to blows. How ridiculous. Oh, Xu Mingwan, if you saw this scene, I wonder if you would gloat.